What if I told you the true horror of Frankenstein isn't the creature, but the terrifying real-life experiments, the ghoulish back-alley trade in human corpses, and the heartbreaking tragedies that a teenage girl channeled into a story that would change the world? Mary Shelley didn't just invent a monster. She gave a face to the very real demons of her time. And tonight, we're going to uncover the forbidden secrets that brought that monster to life. We all think we know the story. A mad scientist, a dark and stormy night, a bolt of lightning, and a monster is born. For over 200 years, Frankenstein has been the ghost story we tell ourselves about science that's gone too far. But that classic image of a lumbering giant with bolts in his neck, the one made famous by old black and white movies, is just a shadow of the real story. The truth behind Frankenstein's monster isn't just a story. It's a chilling combination of grim reality, forbidden science, and the personal darkness of the young woman who dreamed it all up. To understand the monster, you first have to understand its creator. Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, born in 1797, wasn't your average teenager. She was the daughter of two of the most radical thinkers in Europe, the pioneering feminist Mary Wollstonecraft and the political philosopher William Godwin. She grew up surrounded by revolutionary ideas, but also by profound loss. Her mother died just 11 days after giving birth to her, a ghostly absence that haunted Mary's entire life. At just 17, she fell in love and ran away with the brilliant and very married poet Percy Bysshe Shelley. Their life together was a whirlwind of intellectual passion, but it was also marked by scandal, poverty, and one tragedy after another. In 1815, Mary's first child, a premature daughter, died less than 2 weeks after she was born. A week later, Mary wrote in her diary, "Dream that my little baby came to life again, that it had been cold, and that we wrapped it before the fire, and it lived, awake, and find no baby." This single heartbreaking line feels like a prelude to the story she would soon create. A story all about the desperate, dangerous desire to reverse death. The stage for Frankenstein was set during the bizarre summer of 1816. Trapped indoors at Lake Geneva by volcanic ash that blotted out the sun, Mary, Percy, and their friend, Lord Byron, decided to pass the time by seeing who could write the best ghost story. It was there, fueled by conversations about poetry, philosophy, and the nature of life itself, that Mary's waking dream of a terrifying student kneeling over his creation took shape. But this wasn't just a flight of fancy. Her imagination was pulling directly from the shocking scientific headlines of her day. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Europe was captivated by a strange and terrifying new science, galvanism. It all started when an Italian physician named Luigi Galvani discovered that a dead frog's legs would twitch when zapped with electricity. He believed he had found animal electricity, a life force hidden in all living things. But it was his nephew, Giovanni Aldini, who took this discovery and turned it into a public spectacle of pure horror. Aldini was part scientist, part showman, and he toured Europe conducting jaw-dropping demonstrations on the bodies of executed criminals. In front of huge crowds, he would apply electrical rods to the corpses, causing dead limbs to flail and chests to heave. During one infamous demonstration in London in 1803, on the body of a hanged man named George Forster, the corpse's jaw began to quiver, its face twisted into a pained grimace, and one eye actually opened. To the horrified onlookers, it seemed as if the dead were about to rise, that science was on the verge of conquering death itself. These galvanic demonstrations were the talk of Europe, blurring the line between life and death. Mary Shelley was well aware of them. In her 1831 introduction to Frankenstein, she recalled the late-night talks about this new science, pondering if perhaps a corpse would be reanimated. Galvanism had given token of such things. Victor Frankenstein's spark of being wasn't just a fantasy, it was a direct echo of the ghastly theatre of Giovanni Aldini, a science that seemed to offer the power of a god. But to give his creation that spark, Victor needed raw materials, and the way he got them exposes another dark secret of the era. In the early 1800s, medical schools had a serious supply and demand problem. To teach anatomy, they needed human bodies for dissection, but the only legal source was the gallows. With more and more medical students, the number of executed criminals just wasn't enough. This shortage gave birth to a grim new profession, body snatching, known as resurrectionists or resurrection men. These were gangs who prowled cemeteries at night, digging up freshly buried corpses to sell to anatomists. It was a disgusting, illegal trade, but a necessary one for the advancement of medicine. The public was terrified and outraged. Cemeteries were fortified with iron cages called mort safes, and families would often stand guard over the graves of their loved ones. This was the world Mary Shelley knew. This horror wasn't some hidden secret. It was a well-known, if hated, part of life. When Victor Frankenstein describes his work, he admits to collecting his materials from the dissecting room and the slaughterhouse, and speaks of the loathing he felt while dabbling among the unhallowed damps of the grave. He is, in effect, the ultimate resurrectionist. He doesn't just steal bodies, he takes them apart and stitches them back together, pushing the gruesome reality of his time to its most blasphemous extreme. But Victor's ambition wasn't just fueled by modern science. It had much older, more mystical roots. Long before he becomes a modern man of science, Victor Frankenstein is obsessed with the ancient alchemists. He reads the works of figures like Cornelius Agrippa and Paracelsus, men who didn't just want to understand life, they wanted to master it. Alchemy wasn't only about trying to turn lead into gold, it was a secret philosophy aimed at achieving human perfection, discovering the elixir of life, and even creating artificial people. These mystical thinkers were the true forefathers of Victor's obsession. They believed that with forbidden knowledge, a person could unlock the secrets of nature and overcome human limits. This is the very same power Victor seeks when he hopes to pour a torrent of light into our dark world. This connection has even sparked a persistent legend. Not far from where Mary Shelley travelled, in 1814, stands Frankenstein Castle. In the late 17th century, this was the birthplace of an alchemist named Johann Conrad Dippel. For centuries, rumours swirled around Dippel that he performed twisted experiments on stolen bodies, trying to create the elixir of life, and even tried to trade his secret formula for ownership of the castle. While there's no direct proof Mary ever heard of Dippel, the parallels between the real alchemist of Frankenstein Castle and her fictional scientist are too eerie to ignore, blending history and myth right into the story's foundations. All of these threads, the spectacle of galvanism, the grim reality of body snatching, the forgotten dream of alchemy, and the ancient myth of the Golem were woven together in the mind of a teenage girl, filtered through her own devastating experiences with birth and death. If you enjoy deep dives into the dark side of history and literature, think about subscribing for more journeys into the hidden corners of our culture. Frankenstein is so much more than a monster story. It's a mirror held up to the anxieties of a world rocked by scientific and social revolutions. Mary Shelley captured the terrifying promise of modern science, the moral rot of a society that bought and sold its dead, the ancient human urge to conquer our own mortality, and the timeless tragedy of a child abandoned by its parent. Victor Frankenstein wasn't just a mad scientist. He was Giovanni Aldini in his theatre of twitching corpses. He was a resurrectionist, shovel in hand in the dead of night. He was an alchemist chasing a forbidden dream of eternal life. Mary Shelley took the fragmented horrors of her world and stitched them together into one single, unforgettable being. She didn't just create a monster, she created a modern myth that still forces us to ask the most important question of all. When we chase forbidden knowledge, who is the real monster? The creation or the creator?